pretty much my modus operandi remains the same. I'll close the door to the room. I'll take a cup in there with me so I don't have to leave to piss. Guys who run studios don't like to hear that I'm pissing in the vocal booth.
Welcome to Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex, the podcast where we listen to every single album in the world, one artist at a time. My name is Mike Mansour, and I'm joined, as always, by my Hyrulean co-host, Alexander Volt. Say hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is a podcast where we listen to every single album in the world, one artist at a time, usually a whole new discography per episode, except for EAE singles episodes like this one, where we cover something brand new and even more rare, where we tackle on a little bit of something, a little something special at the end. Yeah, today, what are we talking about, Alex?
We're talking about the new project from Eugene Robinson. The band is called Bunuel, and the album is called Mansuetude.
And Bunuel has been around for a little while. This is their fourth album. Yeah.
Fourth one? Okay.
So this is their Bunuel's fourth album. And yeah, they've been around a little bit of while. They've been around a little while. They've been around. The first album came out in 2016, and yeah, of course we know Eugene from Oxbow, R.I.P. Big sad. Check out our episode on their last album from last year.
We were late to the party, but we loved every second of it.
We were late to the party. We were. I mean, Tom, our history guy, by the way, before I start rambling, we have an interview with Bunuel. At the end of this, Tom, our history guy and researcher and interviewer, was kind enough and lucky enough to get us a nice little sit down with Eugene, Franz, the drummer, and Xabier, the guitar player.
And so I love it when we are alone in the studio, nobody's with us, also technicians fucking out.
In fact, I think I've told producers, if you come in that door before I finished, I can't be responsible for what happens to you.
So fun stuff, super insightful, very interesting stuff. Obviously, very likable guys. If you've encountered Eugene at all, you already know. Or if you've read his book, like I have, because it's sitting over there somewhere. For a while, Tom was trying to get me to listen to Oxbow, and it wasn't like I was putting them off. It was just sort of other things kept, I kept putting them off. Let's just, I kept putting them off until finally I thought, like, hey, Eugene's putting out the book. I'm going to fucking dive headfirst. And I did. I read the book in like a few days, and I was listening to like all the albums just back to back. No episode on them, just listening to all the albums. And then we were so fortunate to see them last year.
So good live.
Good. Ridiculously good. But this is not Oxbow. This is Bunuel. This is a completely different band, and holy shit. So I'm assuming this is your first Bunuel album.
Yes, and I didn't know what to go in expecting, and holy shit, like it's had the doors blown off,
to say the least. It's my first as well. All I could expect was Eugene going to be doing some wild screaming and weird stuff. And he is, in a different way than I was expecting, in a very cool way. I mean, everything came out vocally, I think is a very interesting album and very cool performances. Musically, fucking all over the place.
Very, very bonkers guitar playing. I'm going to have to check out Xabier's other band, or Xabier, my bad. Yeah. After Hours and A Short Apnea, because I was just blown away by what this dude is bringing to the party.
Not just that, man, the fucking drums. I mean, holy shit. Opening track, the rhythms on here, you can call it mathy, but it's insane. They're so hard to keep track of. Everything feels slightly off, but very intentionally off. It's and a lot of songs, they don't all do this, but a lot of them do. A lot of just hopping between crazy, wildly different sections, almost genre blending. Just we're doing this crazy, brutal, heavy thing, and then bam, we're gonna get this fucking indie sounding section. A lot of stuff like that is peppered in throughout the album, and I would say the most glaring influence of all that I tried to ignore it, but it was so obvious. The Jesus Lizard Love on this album is insane. I mean, we all love the GS Lizard. Check out our many episodes on GS Lizard and associated bands. But holy crap, they really like the GS Lizard.
Well, I think that was always apparent, even with like Oxbow.
Yeah, but yes, but with Oxbow always felt like its own thing, and this obviously feels like its own thing too.
Mhm.
But there are at least 3 different songs I can point to where I think that's a thing that the GS Lizard would do. A quick example is like High Speed Chase, for example. It sounds like one of the faster, more straightforward GS Lizard songs off of something off a Liar.
Yeah, not that it's not there, but I just felt like they were so unique and so all over the place. The only time I like thought about the Jesus Lizard was when Dwayne Dennison actually shows up.
Hold on, Dwayne's on this album. My boy's on this album. One of my favorite guitar. I didn't check the credit. I know who is it from Converge is on this album. I saw briefly. I didn't like
the singer Jacob Bannon.
Okay, no shit. American Steel. Dwayne Dennison is on American Steel. Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's not surprising. I didn't even fucking know he was on this album. And I'm like, man, this really seems like the Jesus Lizard. It's like, but it's not in the way. So when we think of Jesus Lizard, we often think, I'm just generalizing, I could be fucking wrong, but we think of Dwayne Dennison's creepy ass, distinct ass arpeggios, his little weird ass melodies, unsettling twisted riffs, with like a big driving bass behind it. But like a lot of it, like for guitar wise, anyway, you think of a lot of like the really weird, crazy arpeggiated stuff, the unusual riffs, a lot of stuff you hear off of Go. That's kind of like, I think what comes to mind when you think Jesus Lizard-esque. When I see Jesus Lizard on this album, it's like more of, the other side of Jesus Lizard, when they're more straightforward, they're more rocking. They're like a lot of the stuff we heard on Rack, the reunion album, where it's like, oh, that's like a straightforward rock song, noise rock song. But it's the way Jesus Lizard does it. That's what I got from High Speed Chase. That's what I got from where was it? Parts of Drug Burn as well. But before it sounds like I'm fucking being super critical. I think the album is fucking really good. I mean, it's really good. It's nuts. When I'm not reminded of the Jesus Lizard, I'm not reminded of anything else. I have no fucking idea what this can be equated to in some way.
The only other band I thought of, and not even that they sound similar, is if I could drag our listeners back earlier in 2024, and because they don't get enough love. Like I think a Bunuel Satya Sena tour bill, whatever, I think that'd be a killer show. I think both these bands are just doing chaotic, weird, and in a weird way, fun metal stuff. So we'll also like, Satya Sena is its thing and Bunuel is its own thing. 2 completely different bands, but with 2, or rather 2 styles. I don't even want to call this metal, but because it goes metal, there's parts that go metal for sure, but it's so fucking wacky and so different. And Satya Sena is this thing where you can clearly look at it and say that is metal, but I don't know who else sounds like that. It's a very crazy album. Check out that episode in that album. But so, okay, might as well just start from the top. The opening track. So this album came out last week, and yeah, it's I guess we can go in order. So opening track, Who Missed Me? It comes in immediately. Eugene, the most Eugene vocals ever, big giant fuzzy ass guitars, and then when those double kicks come in.
I don't use a double kick. I use only floor tom with kick.
Yeah, some people like to mellow out in their old age, and I know this is a different band, but I was this in like, because the last time we heard Eugene was on that last Oxbow album, and that was like, that had parts of beauty in it, and there is not really a lot of beauty here. So, man, it is gonna sound like a broken record, but it is some of the craziest shit I've heard in heavy music this year. Like, they go into a part where they kind of have like a dance beat going, and it also channels a little bit of goth rock around like the 3-minute mark. It's this really, really unique.
Super unique. I've said before on the pod where like, oh yeah, they're like rolling toms. nothing is rolling more. These are boulders of drums. It's like you feel like a giant boulder is barreling toward you from the top of a fucking mountain or something. Like they're intense and they're fucking immaculate. They're like perfect. They're perfect drums, which is like a little part of me was like, it's not a fucking drum machine, is it? But it's not. The dude is just a fucking beast. And then around 145, it's a little bit of a crazy distorted track, because I think that opener, more so than all the other ones, hops between sections in the most jarring way out of everything on the album. The way it goes, that indie sounding section around 145, it's a great section, but it fucking blindsides you.
It does, and I would agree with you where this is the most schizophrenic, if you will, track. Not that the other ones are tame, but this is the most like you get settled in a certain thing, and then it just jumps to the next one, and it moves at a lightning pace. It's
a perfect opener for someone who's never heard the band before, because after that I was like, fuck yes, dude.
Yeah, I was hooked immediately.
Yeah. And then following that, we get this crazy ass main riff on Drug Burn, which I could just be misremembering because it's been so long since I've heard them. But first thing I thought of was Blood Brothers in the style of riff. And it's a guitar, but it sounds electronic-fied. Like, I don't know what effects he's using on it, but it sounds like an electronic instrument, but it's also very distinctly a guitar. But it's that type of more anthemic, angsty kind of riff.
It is. It's some of the most memorable hooky guitar playing, because there's not a lot of it, and I almost hesitate to call it a math rock riff, but that's as close as I can get to trying to describe the madness going on here.
Yeah, and then around 240, everything drops out except for this kick. This driving kick drum with Eugene rambling on top of it, and then there's that same melancholy ass guitar riff, but it's a little bit buried that time. But it's a really cool section. It feels really nice, and it's like with an opener like Who Missed Me, you get just beaten down with so many different styles that you kind of don't know what the rest is even going to sound like. And then following it up with that, which sounds nothing at all like any of the sections on the opener, it's like, I don't know, that stuff is encouraging. Like, because it really is representative of the whole album. Every fucking song does something pretty different, pretty unique.
This is a beefy album as well.
Yeah, I didn't realize it. It's like an hour. It does go by pretty fast. There are moments, so I have problems with the album, definitely. But the parts that are memorable, the highlights are fucking outstanding. They're like some of my favorite songs of the year. So one of the singles out, I mean, it's out now by the time this releases, but as of recording, there are only 3 singles out. And one of them is Class. Well, I think Drug Burn is another one as well, but Class. This fucking song, holy crap, dude.
It is wild. It sounds like the Butthole Surfers took a Soundgarden song and just made it weird, but there's still these like more like bluesy or hard rock elements to it. And that starts a trend on the album where I think one of my favorite things about the album is kind of just like being in the zone and just like the random like Eugene lyrics that this like stand out. And on this one, it was this him screaming like cheddar.
Yeah, it's great. That man, I love it. It's especially love the dirty bass tone on most of the album, but it sounds real good on there. And it alternates between these tribal, because you use Butthole Surfers as a reference. The big tribally drums, they are Butthole Surfers-esque. I didn't even think about that, because when we say tribal drums, I think most people would rightfully so probably think of something like Neurosis, like that kind of big, heavy. But this is like jungle tribal, like actual, like that type of rhythm, the actual jungle type of rhythm, where I do think of Butthole Surfers. I think of, for some reason, that fucking New York Dolls song, like on the second album. Like I think of actual tribal rhythms, but it alternates between that section and these big thrashy riffs. But man, it sounds like a malfunctioning computer at certain points. Like it's just such a fucking cool sound.
It is. And then we get movement number 201, which there's another song like that later, but it's these kind of minimal guitar things, maybe doom metal, if you will. And it's this Eugene being unhinged, doing Eugene things. You get these chaotic drum burst. I thought maybe they were gonna do like a free jazz type of thing, but nope, it's just these bursts of drums. And then around like 3:30, it feels like the song's gonna escalate into not that it's not a real song, but like a song with like riffs and grooves.
Something to hold on to. Yeah.
And this builds you up and takes it away.
Takes it away.
Yeah. And
So-
I love how like metallic Eugene's vocals sound on this song as well. This
Metallic
to like
vocals.
stand out a little bit from the other tracks.
So movement number 201 is one of 3 full-blown experimental songs on this album. We
Mhm.
got 3, and they are full-length tracks. They are not short tracks. They are full. And out of the 3, I think I only like one of them. And movement number 201 is not one of them.
Okay.
It's, like, I mean, for one, it's super creepy for a good while of it. And it has a great atmosphere, and it does set it up pretty well. And then even, I even don't even mind the big fucking free jazzy drums that come in and fucking sounds like they Kramered into the room and fell over, and then they're that's it, and then they're gone. But what let me down was that fucking build up, man. It just so like yes, give it to me, and then it just leads to nothing. Like all right, but if you're gonna, I felt like if it's gonna do this meandering kind of insanity, it was long. It was long for that.
Yeah, as someone who's a fan of Neurosis and who thinks the Mars Volta's Francis the Mute is their best album, I did not mind these songs. I'm sure, if you want to get nitpicky or whatever, you could trim these songs down a little bit, but I just thought they added to the vibe of the album.
I'd say I enjoyed the experimental songs a lot more when sort of having this album on ambiently. And when I'm taking notes and I'm focusing on every little thing, I felt them to kind of wear me down a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, might as well just talk about all 3 of the experimental tracks now because they're all pretty relevant to each other. The others are Leather Bar and the closer are Room in Berlin. And the king of those 3 is Leather Bar. I mean, holy shit. Like that song, I'm like, that is how you do a fucking experimental song. Holy crap.
That's funny because I think between the 3, I love A Room in Berlin.
Really?
I love how disturbing the vocals are. I think it's like Eugene at his most unsettling on this album.
For sure. Yeah.
I love this, like the bells ringing out. It's the album came out last week, but it's this perfect Halloween music. There are parts where some metal riffs come in. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. They just come in the one time and it goes back to being this disturbing song. So I really like that because I don't know if it's hard to go there, but I feel like bands don't really like, there aren't really too many songs performed by bands that feel that way.
It is, I think of like a Sumac is not the best comparison, but I think of a Sumac when they go because they go off the deep end. Those motherfuckers go weird.
Yeah, I would say Sumac's a little more like a score. Like this, there's like repetition involved. Not that you can't do that in a score. I'd be one day. I'd be interested in your feelings on the Batman score. I don't know if you listen to that.
You mean the most recent, the Pattinson?
The most recent one where it's just like that simple like piano thing. It's so simple and I think it's so effective. But
I haven't seen it. I'm curious now just for that. Like I don't give a fuck about most movies, most modern movies, but I'm interested now just because of the score.
Yeah. So if you ever get around to it, but not to diminish Leather Bar, which is doing its own chaotic thing. I would say that's the most doom feeling. And then I don't want to say the wrong instrument. Oh yeah, it's cello. Okay,
Yeah.
so I thought maybe it was but it's cello.
It is a cello,
And
yeah.
it's just this. It is very cool, unique to have these like doom elements, and then bring this frantic cello into it.
So, first to go to a room in Berlin where it is Eugene's most hushed and scared sounding vocals that I've heard in recent memory. Really effective because I mean it's this chilling, creepy thing, and then he sounds like he's being chased by someone and he's hiding in a room trying to be as quiet as it's really effective, and has these light bells. It's a very creepy ambient thing, but it's another thing where it's like this is like a 6-minute song and it's a lot of ambience. It is really unsettling. I find it to be way more appropriate in like sitting, and that is creating the mood. More so than like analyzing it and taking notes and trying to like find like what, dissecting that piece, I think does it a disservice, which is what I did in the first listen. But it's very similar to movement number 201. That burst of metal, it goes on for literally 15 seconds. I mean, literally 15 seconds. And it's like, they just burst through the gates and it's like, yes. And then, nope. So in a way, I do find it like pretty kind of funny that they give you this little taste, like, nope, fuck you. We're going to go back to this weird, creepy shit for the rest of the song. But I found it to be less, what's the word? Just less of a payoff than a lot of, because some of these songs have insane payoff and they feel amazing. And to continue with the trio of experimental songs, you're talking about the cello on Leather Bar. That is a thing that was completely left field. And they feel perfect because it's a creepy fucking song. It's super, it's one of the experimental songs. They're all creepy. And when they come in, they're playing this beautiful melody that, of course, that feels way more sinister given all the context around it. And yeah, I didn't realize that that's bassist, Andrea Lamardini, also playing cello on that, and sounds like a pretty accomplished cellist because it sounds expertly done. And it's mixing this beauty with this really crazy. It's like it's a perfect split of beautiful and crazy. And even though you can't really you're not going to find a chorus or a verse or anything, you're not going to find any hooks exactly, it still feels like this well-rounded piece with a payoff. That's why it ended up being my favorite.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think they're all different because we've done Swan's albums where the ambient white noise stuff. And not that this is white noise, but those types of more atmospheric tracks kind of bleed together. All three of these are different.
Very different. Yeah, and I do appreciate that quite a bit. They feel like songs, even though they are, and for obviously people who aren't into extreme music, they're going to hear it as a bunch of nonsense regardless. But if you're like attuned to this kind of stuff, they are songs. They are like distinct songs. I can imagine them pulling this shit off live easily. Even though they are maybe not Leather Bar because it's probably tricky to bring a cello for one song. But yeah, I don't know. People do random shit on stage.
I feel like I've seen bands tour with like a stand-up bass for like one or two songs.
Yeah, I always think about that. I think about that a lot actually. Like it's so hard to be lugging big equipment. Like I've never even once considered taking my piano or like big keyboard 88 key whatever the fuck. I've never once thought about taking that thing gigging, but that's like nothing compared to some of the shit people take on the road with them. Like, fuck, man. All right. You're not quite the minimalist. I appreciate it has to be exactly the way you want to play. I respect that, but holy hell, that's a lot of weight.
One of my favorite new like Hard Times articles, and it's not verbatim. It was something like a guitar player switches out guitar every song, and no one in audience notices or gives a fuck.
Yeah. I think I saw that. I thought they were talking about the switching the pickups with the little switcher on the, I don't have a guitar near me with pickups.
Yeah.
I think about that too a lot because as a lifelong guitar player, switching pickups is like a huge huge deal for tone. But I don't think I've ever heard a difference live when seeing a guitar, which is pretty funny that like I know the effect that it has, but in practice it doesn't matter. It never fucking matters.
Even fellow guitar players, I will say on that Mastodon tour, they played Leviathan front to back. I was like, are they actually going to play Joseph Merrick? And they did. And I was interested how that song would sound for those familiar with that album. It's very like aquatic and it sounds very like effect heavy. And I was like, how are they going to pull this off? And it sounded great. So
did they have acoustics with them for that song?
I don't think so.
Oh, wow.
I don't think so. I was kind of far away. I may be wrong. I'm going to guess that it wasn't, though.
That's impressive because that's like when I think of that song, the first thing I think of is the acoustic guitars.
Yeah. So there may have just been like, look, this is live. It's more electric driven, but it sounded great. But that's an example where I'm like, oh, I can understand why you would have to switch guitars.
Definitely. But as for some of these other songs, because they go in a lot of different places. One of my favorites on here that I can also say it reminds me of the G Lizard in some way or another, but I find it to be such a unique and kind of ingenious main riff is Bleat.
Bleat is so fun. It's like this weird, groovy, heavy song. I think Jacobs is kind of in the background. He's not really like prominently featured. And then more fun lyrics. I don't know why this stood out to me. We are crazy swingers. Now we are swingers no more. No heavy metal bands singing that stuff.
No,
it's great
because it's fucking fascinating.
Yeah.
It's oddly enough, despite it having one of the grimiest and sleaziest noise rock main riffs ever, it's really one of the more straightforward songs. It's a pretty easy to latch onto. It doesn't have too many sections, but God, it's such a slimy song. It's so fun.
That's a good way to describe it. Slimy. Which like, oh, you're bringing Jacob in. This is gonna be hardcore, cranked up to 11, and yeah, it's just this groovy, sleazy song.
Yeah, it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. After that, we got "Killing on the Beach," which a little bit more melancholy, a little bit more melodic. Nothing on here gets super pretty or super melodic, but we have moments.
That is my I was holding off on that. That's my favorite drumming on the album. I love if you want to call these beats, because the man is using like his full kit almost. It's just a great drum beat. You have these like surreal metallic guitars to match, and then it kind of turns into this more spastic affair, and then it gets heavy. And then he switches it up and has this other like drum beat, and like, dog, you didn't need to hit us with two dope drum beats in one song like that, but he did.
Yeah, around 2.5 minutes in, it goes into this. I just felt 60s garage rock riff on bass and drums. It has like these. It's like a 60s garage riff, very very straightforward, very simple. With these, most of the guitars on this song are clean, but with these guitar chords that ring out. Yeah, man, those drums are wonderful. The vocals, how Eugene's doing these nice croons. Yeah, it's one of the nicer songs on here.
I'm glad you brought up 60s guitar, although I think Dick Dale may be a little before that. I don't know. But that's a kind of a nice segue into High Speed Chase, which you were talking about earlier. And that's perfect after Leather Bar. You have to pick up the pace. And yeah, I just want an album with Eugene saying what the fuck, but like in kind of like different inflections. Like, how many different ways can he say what the fuck? And yeah, it's kind of punk, and like real quick, they have like this Dick Dale guitar section, like blink if you miss it, like surf guitar part.
Am I crazy, or was that a fucking gnarly bass solo in there?
Oh, maybe that's what I thought about that for a second. I should have like specified. It may have been.
That's the section you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. Holy shit.
I don't know. I think I was like, is this bass? And then there was something where I was just like overconfident, like, oh no, this guitar. But the fact that it gives you pause, who knows? Now, who knows? Who knows?
Sounds fucking wonderful, though. I mean, it's a nutty little solo thing. Yeah,
it's crazy, whatever it is.
And it's otherwise a pretty straightforward song. I mean, it does. I felt it kind of had a hiccup in the pacing of Following Leather Bar. I do agree that we need a song like that following Leather Bar, like a more straightforward, fast, kind of more grabbable song after you just sat through this crazy experimental thing. But what ended up making me enjoy it was that crazy solo thing. And some of the G Lizard stuff here, I mean, that section on 210, that's when I was like, fuck, that is, I mean, holy crap. It really reminds me of it. But I wouldn't call it like a knock against the song at all. Just reminding me of it quite a bit. And then speaking of the Jesus Lizard, American Steel.
So we got two homeless guys on the song now.
Hell yeah! Well, Dwayne is he seems like he lives under a roof. He seems like one of the more normal. No. They all seem normal except for David, except for Yao. Because I was remembering that David Sims is like an accountant, or he owns his own accounting firm or something like that.
You know, it's funny. David Sims sounds like an accountant.
Of course he does. And he has the fucking scowl of one too, which I've never seen the man smile.
Anyways.
American Steel. Yeah. Another more straightforward one. I do like the mix of like they get the crazy stuff, you get the really crazy stuff, and then you get the stuff that's just like noise rock. Just like regular ass, easy to digest noise rock.
Yeah, there's almost like chaotic, surreal vibe to this song, and then it like warps and changes into like a more straightforward punk thing like you were talking about.
Yeah, I do quite enjoy the main riff. It's very bizarre main riff, but very nice stuff. And then in the final third, it goes into this really pounding, clangy guitar harmonic section. It's just delightfully bitter and brutal. Another great little section there. There's a lot of like within an album this kind of spastic and all over the place. It's kind of hard to pick out like the wildest moments. For some reason, despite the big giant experimental songs, I find Fixer to be one of the weirdest moments, one of the wildest songs, just because of that. It's such a kooky main riff. It's such an odd main riff.
Yeah, and then I think I believe there's some female
Megan. Ostracids from Couch Slut.
What a great band name.
Good name.
Yeah, it's just I think that one has like some genre like moments where it's just like they're doing what, and then this kind of moves on, and like when she's singing, it almost has like an 80s vibe to it.
Yeah, 80s how?
Like I guess I was thinking like the way it was produced, like I could hear like her and Eugene like doing something in the 80s. I don't know why my brain went there, but
it's strangely light and silly, but played extremely aggressively.
I think the light and silly aspect too is like
it's unusually light compared to some of the stuff here is real dark, and then it also gets like unusually anthemic, borderline, almost generic kind of chorus, like really simple, like really like, oh, I feel like I've heard that before, but there's like this funness to it. There's like this whole overall like really fun vibe to it. But that outro, it gets way dark. It gets super heavy, brutal outro. Love it.
It's a good segue into Trash, and boy, oh boy, it's like thrash metal, but there's a menacing synth or something similar to a synth. And then these fucking maniacs say, hey, like it's already a crazy song. Let's bring a saxophone in on top of this.
I didn't catch the saxophones.
It makes it for me.
Holy shit.
Like it's maybe like an 8 out of 10 song without the sax. But once those came in and just like pushed it over the edge for me.
Shit. Yeah, because it is like, for one, it's like less than 2 minutes. It's a straight up like heavy thrash, like a High on Fire kind of thrash. And it's like, oh yeah, this is way more traditional. Like I could see most people like hearing this and being like, kind of not swayed in any way by any weirdness. I didn't even catch the fucking saxophones. Well, I feel like a fucking noob.
Your brain was probably just melted from all the like previous insanity going on.
I was drooling after Fixer. That's true.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And another one of my favorite songs on the album. I mean, such a fucking wild main riff to Pimp. Pimp rules.
Pimp is crazy because there's a lot of aspects that are like very militaristic, whether it's the vocals or some of the drum stuff. Just like you think of like lift, or like snare roll, and then it just
sounds like a drill sergeant on that song.
But they do what they do, and they just warp it and change it into something where it's not that anymore.
So like the militantness of it, the militant aspects, because it does on that song as well as many others. You're getting a lot of Eugene. You're getting a lot of overdubs. You're getting a lot of coming in and out, swirling around you. Really not claustrophobic, but yeah, a little bit of like a smothering kind of effect where there's a lot of vocals, a lot of weird screams, and it ends up fitting every song pretty well. And this one, the ambient stuff, he's shouting like a drill sergeant. It feels like a drill sergeant, and it's doing these big repetitive hits. And the riff itself is a very long riff, separated by these hits. So like, it'll do one hit and it'll be ringing out, and then it'll hit the next note of the riff and it'll be ringing out. So in order for it to do like one repetition of the riff, it takes a while because it's a very stretched out. I'm sounding like I'm talking on my ass. It's a long riff stretched over the course of these hits.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So you hear like, 2 out of like the 6 notes of the riff. You think it's just this pounding, punishing thing, but by the time you get toward the end, it's like, oh wait, this is actually like a melodic, dark riff. It's actually like a pretty riff. It's just played in such a brutal and spaced out way that it takes a while to register. It's a punching and punishing way to arrange an arguably really melodic, nice progression.
Also, these days, it's this like, how have I heard everything the way bands can play with spacing in their songs? Because some days it feels like that, and then you like the way you felt like you were talking out of your ass, but I was like, that makes perfect sense to me. Like the spacing and how it's stretched out is just masterful.
Yeah, it can feel like you're doing something just sheer brutality, but if it keeps moving, if the notes keep changing, it keeps moving, it takes a whole different shape that it just feels so different. And yeah, it's just it makes what is originally like a really herky-jerky, weird kind of rhythm to that song and turns it into this very deep piece overall. It ends up being one of my favorite songs on the whole album.
Amazing album.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, despite I think it has flaws, I don't think it's perfect, and especially from a pacing standpoint. But there's something that's lingering about it that I was excited to go back to it. I'm excited to go back to it after this. It might make my year-end list. I mean, it's just something really fucking earwormy about it.
Yeah, whenever I know this isn't a new side or even side projects, you never know. It varies, and so I didn't know what to get, and thankfully I got an amazing fucking album.
Yeah, we are all sad that Oxbow is no more, but I am quite delighted that Eugene is at the fucking top of his game. I mean, holy shit, these are like some of the coolest vocals that I've heard him do. Period.
It's hard to do with the career that long. We've most recently did like the Ghetto Boys, and I so badly wanted them to like get on top, like on the top of their game, and it just never happened. And then you have guys like Eugene who, like, people who know and they appreciate him. But then I don't know, maybe that's part of it. Like, they're just forever underdogs. Like, they have nothing left to lose.
Yep. Yeah. Also, just artists who just keep making. Whereas when you have no, like, you're not really put under any pressure to make a specific kind of thing to appease a certain audience. The freedom to be yourself as an artist is a very beautiful thing, especially when you get older. And like, I don't fucking care. I'm already this age. I've already lived my life. I'm going to make what I want to make. It ends up being some of the craziest, coolest shit ever. And then this is not that, it's semi-related, but nothing that we talk about too often, where we see like old artists that decide to do that, and then it fucking sucks because they spent all these years playing what everyone else wanted and they forgot how to be good.
Yeah.
And then you see the third permutation of that where they do this. It's the same thing, but it's good. Like Danny Elfman, like where he puts out a solo album when he's a fucking old man. It's this crazy industrial metal thing that rules.
So fucking good. Like,
nutty.
I want a second one, but also like he doesn't have to. He scores movies, and he could just tour off his movie scores and Oingo Boingo shit.
Oingo Boingo too. Oh man, that's a band I have problems with.
I haven't like listened to their albums in full, but I can't defend them, but I like what I've heard from them.
They have a lot of good songs, and now we're talking about Oingo Boingo. This
is going to be long enough with the interview.
I was so into that first Oingo Boingo EP, though. The first album and first EP, pretty solid, and also the song that they did for the Dilbert cartoon, Forbidden Zone, amazing song, But check out the album, and even more so, check out the interview following this, which many of you, I'm sure, probably skipped to because I have timestamps so conveniently in the description and on the video. But big thanks to Dan from Discipline PR for reaching out and sending us the advanced copy of the album, as well as connecting us with the members of Bunuel. And for Tom, thanks to Tom, of course, for connecting all that, because, well, we don't have a whole lot of interest in interviewing. We might dip our toes into that in the future, but Tom he knows what he's doing. It is very reliable. It's a great interview, so go check that out following this. Huge thanks to all the members, of course, Eugene, Xabier, and Franz. Such talented cats, such talented motherfuckers, and kind enough to make an appearance on our little old humble pod. But before we do that, one last plug, Patreon, baby. You got to go. You got to do it. Patreon.com/everyalbumever. Bonus episodes. You get to see our schedules in advance. You get to vote on polls to decide who we cover next. Get to join the Discord, be a part of the community. You could suggest brand new albums from this year, so we can do episodes like this on it. And if you're tier 2, then you could suggest a full discography for us to cover on our bigger, longer numbered episodes, as well as any album from anywhere ever, and we could do Patreon bonus episodes on that. So there's a lot of good stuff there. Go do that. Follow me on all social media at Pounder Monkey, and Alex on Instagram at
Every Album Alex,
and Tom, who you're going to see in just a few seconds, at Tom Osman Sounds on all social media, as well as TomOsmanSounds.com for his music. Just put out a new album, and his podcast, Whatever Comes Next, where he interviews musicians not unlike Bunuel. So links to all that in the description. My EP, links to that in the description as well. And I believe, so the album's out now, but the singles are only out for us at the moment. So of the singles, which are Drug Burn, Class, and Fixer, what do you think?
I feel like you were a Classman. I was a Drug Burn man. So I'm like, I love that riff on Drug Burn so much.
Let's do Drug Burn. It's an interesting one, but it is a fucking cool one.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So stay tuned for the full interview following that. And then after that, you will hear Drug Burn. Okay.
This is Tom for Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex, which you will all know because you've just watched Mike and Alex talking about Mansuetude by Bunuel. And as you can see, I am joined by 3/4 of the band. I have Eugene, I have Franz, and I have Xabier. Thank you, guys. It's great to have a chance to talk to you.
Thank you, Tom.
To be talked to. In a way that doesn't involve punishment, I guess.
Nothing intentional. I'd like to start with a question for you, Eugene. I think you mentioned before that you thought of Oxbow as being like the super ego and Bunuel being the id. Do you still see things in that kind of comparison?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a strict Freudian, but it's sort of my approach to what I'm doing vocally with Bunuel is a lot more intuitive, and a lot more based on feel. And, structurally, it moves, Timo Ellis was doing different things with the production than, let's say, Ciccarelli. And it's an entirely different experience for me. And I don't feel any compulsion to alter it, because I've been blessed with, Franz, Xabi, Carlo. Nobody has ever said, the fuck are you talking about? So it really is kind of a perfect setup for me, and there are other bands where you'll get questions like that sometimes on occasion. So and there's a risk of being vocally boring, and I can explain that. If you hear Metallica, anytime there's a kind of and it's okay, it's a guitar player who sings. That's what Metallica is. But anytime you can see vocally when he has to make a choice and he's unsure of, James Hetfield will just go, yeah! And then that fills in the blank, right? And I really largely attempt to not do that. So I'm making informed choices, but an informed choice for a vocalist is something that comes from, depth of soul. So I'm feeling a clear-cut line to being able to do that with Bunuel, and it's refreshing and enjoyable. So, and
I'm very interested by that point of you saying that this is more intuitive, because I can remember, for example, with you talking about the first Oxbow album, Fuckfest, of having like very precise ideas about the way you wanted things to sound. And I remember you saying that there's like this one scream that you do that you're still pissed off about, that you're unhappy with. So I get the sense that
the song is called Hunger, and it's about 3/4 of the way through. Yes.
So when you say that you're kind of more intuitive with Bunuel, does that mean that when you're doing your vocal performances, there's more kind of improvisation, and you might go like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting to do that, but I'll take that?
No, because I've listened to the music for months and months and months. Like literally a little counter on my players is like 137 times I've listened to whatever the song, or, the songs for the record, but I'm not attempting to structurally work them with the music like I would in another setting where I'm in practice day after day after day. So it's like, I've got a knife, I've got a fork, I've got a spoon, I've got a plate, and the music starts, and the vocal as it's constructed is constructed at the time immediately based on, probably darker emotional issues that I don't really have quite a good handle on. But the risk when you're a vocalist of being boring is like like the Hetfield thing, or alternatively just doing another record like the last record you did, and that's not a luxury that we're interested in exploring. I mean, these guys always give me musically stuff that is an evolution. It's like everything Bunuel could have been but wasn't, but now is. So it's a kind of nice evolutionary step, and it's my job to try to meet and match that based on very real things happening inside of me. So,
and thinking about the evolution of the band, so you guys, at least the three of you, have now made 4 albums together. And so when did the band actually start? It was about 10, 12 years ago, something like
16.
16 years ago.
No.
2016.
Oh, sorry, 2016.
It's only 8 years.
So you've got this, you've developed this relationship as a band over this time, and obviously you all have different things that you're doing, but what's that like as a dynamic when Eugene is most of the time away and the rest of you guys are together? How do you feel that relationship has built over time with you doing things sometimes from a distance and then getting together?
Well, for me, it's like, it's not a parenthesis, Bunuel, but it's like I'm involved in Bunuel when I have something to do for Bunuel. So when it's time to write new things, or it's time to fix 2 days or 3 days of recording and then connect completely with the Buñuel attitude. If it's instant composing in the studio, or if we are working on some riffs, guitar riffs or drum fills, we start working on it. So it's not every morning I'm waking up, okay, let's thinking about a new record or new music or new stuff for Buñuel. It's not like that. But I think that it's a normal and at the same time a great evolution that the band had, because we started from a post-hardcore stuff, and then normal evolution. We found that have more mid-time or long terms of music will be interesting to do, and fastest songs and different kind of arrangements and sound approach. So it's a normal evolution that we had. But I think that the biggest step was from the end of the trilogy, from Killers Like Us to Mansuetude. This is the biggest step, but we had it. Yeah.
Talking about evolution and talking about, sort of I don't know if you necessarily said experimenting, but trying out different things rhythmically. Something that really stood out to me that I find very interesting is on the first track, Who Missed Me, you have this very sharp break musically that the track goes to. And I feel like in the part that I want to call like the post-punk part, like that's kind of like maybe how it sounds to me when it comes in. I feel like in terms of the music, you're doing something very unsettling here. It's almost like the guitar and the drums are kind of diverging in this way that makes it feel very uncomfortable. And then you come back together. Is this my imagination? Am I going crazy? Or are you intentionally doing something with the rhythm here?
I think it's both.
Yeah. Something like a post-hardcore riff of a drum, like Refused. I think I prefer this way to do something rhythmic.
Tommy, it's like music is mathematics, not only mathematics, but there is a lot of mathematics in music. So when we started to record what became Who Missed Me, that's the name of the first song. So we decided to create different caminos, different roads. So, and in these roads, sometimes we can cross each other and go to other ways. So that's why me and the bass player counting in a way, and Franz in another way. So that's mathematical, but it's quite simple. It's only practice. It's nothing. It's nothing impossible to do. It's like Meshuggah do it. It's.
I was going to mention Meshuggah. It's funny because it's nothing like Meshuggah, but it still makes me think like there's definitely counting involved here.
Yeah, but it's only math. It's nothing more than math. I think it.
Well, you say that, but that's being modest in a way, because you've still got to make it sound good. You can count and it just sounds like chaos. So the fact that you managed to do it in a way that's compelling is really cool. Did you always have that sense with the track that you wanted it to have these kind of interweaving parts to it?
Yeah, in the songs, we decided to do it and have this post-punk and with a melodic bass line, and then re-entering, but with completely three different lines. The guitar makes one thing, the bass another thing, the drums another thing. Three different songs.
What I always liked about that approach is that I remember at one point Albini was talking about working with U.S. Maple, and he said. He said, yes, I want to hear what you guys are playing, and before they start recording. And so they start playing songs, and he sat there for a second. He told me this. He said, he sat there for a second. He goes, oh, these guys are fucking with me. It's like, it's not a real song. These are like four guys playing four different songs. And then he realized it was the same song, that was fully what they intended. It was not an accident. And so when I hear, Who Missed Me, I'm like, yeah, I like that energy. Sounds like it could be an accident, not accident at all. So
yeah, that's very interesting what you said about US Maple. Is the Sang Fat editor album after produced by Jim O'Rourke too, and that's important because I toured with them with the Short Apnea at that time, And I remember the first time I saw them on stage, because I'm a fan of US Maple, so I said, it's impossible. It was like an improv style, recording. But when they came to the stage, they completely made fucking the same music. I listened on the album and said, what? This is all was written. What the hell? Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy, guys. Yeah.
That is really funny that you brought up US Maple, because I actually thought of them later on in the album. I don't remember exactly which track it was, but it's like there's this sense that it's building and there's about to be a payoff, and it kind of comes and then it's like, no. And I thought that was a very US Maple thing to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it's not just no. It's no. You're right.
Yeah, but US Maple, but it comes from Beefheart for me. It comes from Truth Must Replica on that album that Captain Beefheart made it. There are these kind of solutions, it's okay, we're entering in a roadrunnering stuff, then completely like free jazz style, then stop it, everything fucked up, then re-entering. That came from this kind of attitude, and I love it. Is similar to some kind of free jazzy, but mixed with hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I was working at Apple, you make friends and people come by. This guy drops by my office at one point and he's talking. He goes, "Oh, you make music?" And I go, "Yeah, because I used to make some music." I go, "Really? What did you do?" He goes, "I produced a record. I don't know if you've heard of this guy." I go, "Who'd you produce a record for?" He goes, gives his name, Captain Beefheart. So I, wait, what? He goes, I go, Trout Mass Replica. He goes, no, Back Chain Puller.
Yeah.
He goes, "Here's a copy." Gave me a copy. I was like, oh, fuck. I wanted all the I wanted the stories about what it was like. And he said that record was made. I attempted to quit 7 times during the producing of that record. He was like, stood up. That's it. Left, they had to block his car, and he went back in to record. It was great. It was great. Pete Johnson was his name. He's still alive, I guess.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Talking about producers, and you brought up Timo Ellis before. I think this is the first time that you worked with him on Bunuel. I'm not sure if any of you guys worked with him before. How did you decide to work with him this time? Because I know, Xabi, I think you produced one of the previous albums, but you have had different producers before. So why did you bring him in, and what did he bring to the album?
3 years ago, a friend of mine, Barnaba Ponchielli, gave me this. He's like my music pusher, and so he arrives with this solo of Timo Ellis and this album by Netherlands, the band of Timo Ellis, and I was super impressed by the production, in particular. Not only the writings of the songs, that would be some great guitar sounds. Oh, that's fucking great, this guy. But the produce was, the producing of drumming, of guitar, of vocal shits. I said, okay, maybe this guy could be a nice guy to have the nice connection, because he loves strange things, but he loves the same sludge music, and he's a metal head, but at the same time he loves pop music. And so I said, oh, wow, probably he's the right guy. And at the same time, maybe when we were in tour, that was Eugene, that you told me that your sister had some songs or the album produced by him.
Yeah, it was crazy. My sister, my younger sister, one of my younger sisters, I have 4 of them, is a singer. She's like won a Grammy, did a song with Stephen Marley, Bob Marley's kid. And she's in the studio with some guy recording something new for her new record. And she doesn't often do this, but she goes, "Yeah, my brother's in a band too." And the guy goes, "Oh, yeah, really? What band?" He's not very interested. She goes, "Well, this band Oxbow and this band Bunuel." He's like, "Wait, what?" The fuck? How is that even possible? It's crazy. So yeah, she loved working with him, and then it turns out Xabi knew him. So I was like, yeah, fuck, this is great. This is cool. So, it's not like we've had people do it before. And then even stranger, the guy who mixed it. I was just on tour with this guy for like 3 weeks. He's in Spotlights. I didn't put it together until like 4 days ago that Mario was
Mario Quintero. Yeah.
I mean, He didn't bring it up, and we saw each other like every night. So we talked more about jiu-jitsu than anything else. But I have to now act like I knew it was him the whole time because it's too stupid otherwise, right?
Yeah, it's interesting as well, Xabi, what you say about the pop element, because I do feel like I hear little kind of poppy elements in the album, and obviously a lot of other elements as well. So it does make sense to bring someone in who you can kind of tell can sort of handle a variety of different styles and sounds and moods. Something else that I'm curious about, and this is particularly a question for Franz. So I think you said before that you've got a particular kind of setup for your drums for Bunuel, and then you also do percussion, and you make some effects with the percussion. I'm never really quite sure, like, what's the drums and what's the percussion? When you say percussion, what kind of things are you doing there?
With the drums, I do some rhythm. With the percussion, I do sound effects. With the arc, with some object, chains, knife, with pedals, reverb, distortion, and loop. I made the sound with this. I use with the drum. I use a large setup, very large, and only floor tom, snare, and kick.
No toms.
That's it. No toms.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think I maybe mentioned this before. Like, there's something about your sound, and I can't quite put my finger on why it's like so big. You know, it's not
so big.
It's not metal, but there just is something big.
I want to do explosion with the drum.
And just partly because Eugene brought up Metallica before, again, this might be a coincidence, but at the very beginning of, I think it might actually be Who Missed Me, the way that the drums open up does remind me of one by Metallica.
I don't use a double kick. I use only floor tom with kick.
That's cool. But was that sort of like the kind of effect that you were thinking of?
Yeah. With this setup, I made all the things I have in my head.
Yeah, all the different tools that you can deploy.
Which balances it out, since Metallica famously ripped Oxbow off in using Marian Faithful in the way that they poorly did after we had done it. And the only reason I'm bitter about that, it needs to be said, is because they asked him on Headbangers Ball, where did you get the idea to use Marian Faithful? And they stumbled. And they could have thrown us a bone and say they got it from us, but they didn't. And they said, our manager came up with the idea. Our manager, who was friends with Oxbow's former bass player, Dan Adams. So I don't mind, on occasion, returning the favor. So I'm glad Franz did so.
Sticking with kind of delving into some of the tracks, there is a track that I would say is one of maybe the least musical on the album, but it's actually becoming one of my favorites, which is movement number 201. And can you tell me a bit about how this came together? Because I think it's very interesting the way it evolves and the way that it is actually quite compelling, even though there's not necessarily kind of a clear melody that's running through it.
Yes, before entering in the studio, we decided to have some time in the recording studio to make some improv stuff, very open stuff. So we decided only what to do. For example, Franz decided to have this acoustic with large pieces of drum kit and metal stuff, chains, effects at the same time on a table. And me to have a palette of sounds coming from harshy, super high frequencies to super ultra low frequencies. And so that was, we decided only to have, what is the kind of expression of the sound that we will have? Okay, let's start and have some time between the notes and some silence too. To have to give the possibility to Eugene to explore more that kind of spoken style of stuff. So we recorded more than one improv, and then we combined and edited these impros in one song that became a movement. That's right, Franz?
Yeah.
And I think that we made only one overdub on that song when we entering in, and it's like we are all the three together playing the same, down, 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 down. Okay, so let's do this kind of stuff inside the song, and then we decided where to put it.
That's very cool. That's a cool insight to get. And this sort of feels to me like a good moment to bring up something else, which you brought up last time, Xabier, which was your project with Franz, Menk. And I had to listen to the album, and I found it really, really compelling. I really enjoyed. It's very kind of transportive. Like I sort of felt like, oh, I'm in a different place here. And I was wondering, listening to that album, when you're doing something, or when you do that project in particular, does that feel like something totally separate from Bunuel, or were you kind of exploring things that you then maybe took into Mansuetude?
You know, there's not an attitude of to be a band in Mank. That's two guys that want to start to investigate about sounds, about composing, not making songs. Buñuel is making songs. So that's our attitude. So let's start to go to a church, have this kind of natural reverb, made some kind of acoustic stuff, electroacoustic stuff, regarding in particular on frequencies, dynamics, and that's it. So it's completely different work from Buñuel, but it's true, Tom, that at the end, some kind of experimentation that we made in our life, not only in music, arrives directly to Buñuel. And so that's normal, I think. And so some kind of, I think, sounds that we found together, me and Franz, in this road of our stuff together, the improv stuff. I think that entering in some ways, for example, in movement number 201 or in Room in Berlin, that's what we decided to do. I remember we were in the car, Franz told me, maybe we can open some kind of things. And I said, it could be interesting, but we'll see with Andrea, the bass player, if he want to make this kind of things or not. And he agreed. And so it was very natural and simple, like to play rock and roll, to make this kind of songs in Buñuel.
And you brought up A Room in Berlin there, which I also wanted to touch on, because I saw that Timo Ellis is credited with track compositing on that. And I'm wondering what that means. And I'm also wondering, partly I'm curious because I was living in Berlin last year. So whenever I see Berlin in a title, I go, ooh, Berlin. Why A Room in Berlin?
Can't talk about that. I mean, you have lyrics. I mean, this is the same thing that's holding up the creation of the second memoir. I just don't want to hurt people's feelings, but
and say no more.
Those with the ears to hear and the eyes to see might know what I'm alluding to. It's
no problem.
Somebody. It's funny that there's somebody that to mention Albini again. I don't know why he's on my mind these days so much. And we had a friend in common, and she called me at some point and said that she was having an argument with Steve. And I go, oh my God, what are you two arguing about? And she goes, well, and she tells me this whole thing that they're arguing about. I go, he said that? And she goes, yeah. I go, where? What, he called you? He wrote that? And she goes, no, he's sending me messages. I go, wait, messages? She goes, yeah, through his food blog. So, not to make fun of her necessarily, but, you might be able to look at the lyrics for Bunuel songs, and somebody somewhere might be sitting and going, I think he means this is for me, So. Very
well. There's something else that I wanted to ask, which is sort of a technical sound question, and that was about Damn, which track was it? There is I think it might be the second track on the album. I think it's Drug Burn. Yeah. The melody at the start of this track, which comes back in later on, I could swear is not a guitar. If you tell me that you're creating these sounds from a guitar, I'm amazed. Is it a guitar?
Yes, it's a guitar. But it's a pedal. It's normal. When some pedals completely destroy the sound of your normal guitar and create new textures, that's what these kind of solutions, history is full of these kind of things. If you listen, one of the first single of Bo Diddley, you can listen the first an effect of the history. It's a Diamond tremolo that makes this particular sound that Bo Diddley's guitar has. So it's normal. Technology enters and destroy tradition. So
All right.
I love it. And so it's a normal pedal. I'm endorsed by this American company that made these incredible nice pedals. And I decided that this kind of sound was interesting to have a sound of the riff of a song. And I recorded in my studio and I sent it to Franz and to Andrea, and they said we love it. And so I said, okay, we have it, that sound for that song, and we use it on the record. It was very simple to record it, and everybody is thinking that it's a synthesizer or stuff like that. Everybody is... but it's normal. It's a synthesizer. It's an arpeggiator. It's the name of
okay.
It's an arpeggiator, but inside a pedal, not in a synthesizer. So if you are playing the guitar in a normal way, it makes strange and noisy sounds. But if you control it, you can have the rhythm section that can enter with the drum section. That is completely important for me that I'm working with Franz. So if I'm really into the rhythm section of the song and making with the pick the right things, it works. If not, it's completely chaos.
Yeah, I guess that's often the case when you're using pedals. You really have to be quite precise about what you're doing
Absolutely.
so that the sound doesn't just completely go out of control.
Yeah, absolutely.
Eugene, I wanted to ask you another question about your vocals. So I was thinking about the different projects that you've had and the different albums you've recorded over the years. You've got so many really kind of like powerful, wild sounding vocals. And I guess this is something that I think I remember again you talking about making Fuckfest, that you kind of, when you went from Whipping Boy, you sort of wanted to take a different vocal approach and you were, practicing different ways that you could use your voice. I'm wondering now at this point, do you ever, produce something and go like, oh shit, that came out of me? Or do you feel like like
every song,
your body now?
Every song. And it started to happen with me probably with Thin Black Duke, where I started to feel like it really had a lot less to, like I wasn't standing in my way anymore. So it had a lot less to do with, the conscious mind and much more to do with everything else that wasn't the conscious mind. And, the way that we do the vocals for Bunuel, Monty Valier, who's, one of the guys who founded that band Swell and has played tons of bands, different projects over the years, and is also a producer in his own right. Gets the lyrics for the record, talks to me about what kind of we're thinking, what we want it to sound like, comes in with a different mic array for each kind of each record. And pretty much my modus operandi remains the same. I'll close the door to the room, and I do less of this part that I'm about to say next. I'll take a cup in there with me so I don't have to leave to piss. Guys who run studios don't like to hear that I'm pissing in the vocal booth. But so I try to not have to use the cup, but I really don't want to leave before I'm finished. And insofar as I've gotten a sense of what the first song is going to be and the last song, it's only an old guy thing in my head that I think of a record in terms of albums, but I like to start at the start and I like to end at the end. And what happens to the vocal choices and what you hear coming out of my mouth is affected by that approach. So that the dynamic that comes across by the last song reflects somebody who's just sung 10 songs in a row. And this is pretty purposeful and not accidental at all on my part. So, but what'll happen on occasion is stuff will come out and I'm hearing, it could be something as simple functionally as I'm learning to use my headphones better. Maybe that's it, who knows? But I'm hearing the voice as it's coming out of my mouth going, I can't believe this is me. Right? Like I can't, like I talked to somebody once about some outre sexual thing, and I was like, it's like being in a movie and watching a movie. And that's very much this kind of divided mind of when singing the vocals. It's like, you know, amazed at what's happening at the same time while I'm making it happen. So
Yeah.
and that's, to me, it's been incredibly. I mean, there are only two for me. It's like what I did with Whipping Boy, which I never liked, and then what I'm doing now, which I've always liked. I've never had a bad, knock on wood, vocal recording session for Bunuel, and when I say not bad, I mean good in every possible way. Outside of having to piss in a cup. So
Needs must.
yeah. Well, what are my options at that point? Right. I mean, if I open the door, superstitious wise, I get this idea that the connection that I'm making to God is like now, it's like, oh, you hung up the phone. So I really do like to stay in the moment.
Yeah.
And Tom, I wanted to add something about the vocals of Eugene, about the production that Timo made it. When we started to thinking about a different producer from the ones that produced the trilogy, we started to think that could be American or English. So because I think that the focus on the English vocals and English lyrics, it's completely natural and more focused. And when there is a foreigner producer, French or Italian, Spanish, whatever, German, it's normal that it's not your principal first language. So the focus on the vocals, of the meaning of some words, of the sounds of some words is completely different. And I think that we really made the goal with that, because the voices that Eugene recorded for this record sounds different in Mansuetude from the other 3 records we made it. So I think that we made the real great choice to decide to give the production to an American guy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely think the record sounds great. I've had a little bit of time to listen to it, and the more that I listen to it, the more that I want to keep listening to it. It is very compelling and very enjoyable and very heavy, but also very melodic too. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So just to finish off, I guess I'm just curious to know, I think last time we spoke, you didn't have so much lined up in terms of live shows. I'm wondering now if there is anything concrete coming up in terms of you performing together.
Tom, we are working on it. We will make a tour in Italy, and at the end of January, beginning of February, then we are working on making a UA tour, a European tour in April, and an American tour in May. We are working on it, so we have not all the schedule fixed all the time, but we are working on it, and hope that in the next weeks everything will be out.
Yeah, we had November shows scheduled with Whores, and then they had that terrible news about the drummer having cancer, and then they canceled, and then we canceled, and then they a few weeks later said, oh well, I think we could do it, and they came back, but of course then we couldn't do it. So but I think there are 2 ways to go about this. You release the record October 25th, and then you tour in November, and you tour in front of a bunch of people who have no idea what these songs are that you're playing because they haven't had time to hear the record. Or, wiser heads say, what you should do? You should do it in the springtime, where we've had a good 3 months of people listening to the records. The videos have had time to come out. and that you actually have people who know the music that you're playing, not the previous records, but the new stuff. So I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Well, I will definitely be waiting with great anticipation for the tour to come round. Sorry, Franz, were you about to say something?
Yeah. But our goal is to make records because we love getting on stage and play them to kick ass.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, and that affects largely kind of how it is at least I'm doing the vocals, where I remember talking to Ian Mackay, and he was like, I do my vocals a different way now. I go, what way is that? He goes, I sit in the control room next to the guy producing them. And I was like, that's really fucking weird. That doesn't sound like you could be in the He goes, well, when I play it live, I play it in front of people. So why not now? And I go, so it's more the playing live that's significant than that you're doing sitting next to the guy who's thinking about lunch. So I still prefer a vocal booth, but my orientation has, over the last 20 years been very much, what is this going to look like and sound like live? And that's what I'm trying to do in the studio.
Yes, me too. I love it to make recordings alone. We three in the studio, nobody enter. I made records with, cameras and people inside the room and stuff like that. No. Yeah. This is a moment it's an artistic moment. We are creating something. We don't need that you are thinking about your stuff. Also the energy is completely different. And so I love it when we are alone in the studio. Nobody's with us. Also technicians fucking out.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, well,
in fact, I think I've told producers, if you come in that door before I finished, I can't be responsible for what happens to you.
Yeah.
I think I said it to Albini too. It's just it's a thing that, you may just leave me alone in there. Just let me do my job. How about that? Yeah.
And on that note, I'm going to say, Xabi, Franz, Eugene, thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Tom.
All of the best with the release of the album. I think it's great, and I hope it gets the reception it deserves. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys kicking ass on stage next year.
How's your chest?
It's getting better, thank you. Ever since you talked about rotten watermelons, I started feeling really anxious, but it's starting to get better, thank you.
I wanted to generate anxiety, and I did so.
You definitely did.
All right, you guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.